This is gonna be a mistake. Where do you want to go?
Wherever.
Bravo 2, I guess? Oh, I guess we're doing a barrel roll.
All right.
Who let this guy drive? What is happening? It's a tough plant, man.
It's one of them rock plants.
What is happening with this thing? Can I not get through? Okay, I'm done with this thing. How can it not go through some bushes?
It's literally stuck in the bush. Hey everyone, hope you're all well. Battlefield 2042's Week 7 of Season 1 is here, and alongside we've also seen the return of 24/7 Breakthrough on Exposure in the main all-out warfare section of the game. It's nice to see that return as I'm a Breakthrough fan and the new map is the best in the game. Unfortunately, Breakthrough as a game mode hasn't really felt right in 2042, and I wanted to take a dive into that in today's video. Let's get to it. We'll start with a super brief history on Breakthrough. Taking inspiration from the hugely popular Rush mode from previous titles, Battlefield 1 launched a new mode called Operations, where an attacking team takes objectives in the same manner as Conquest, but once a sector is captured, the defending team has to fall back to a new sector, like in Rush. Think Rush, but without MCOMs to arm. Operations was hugely successful and really fit with Battlefield 1's scale and immersion, with multiple stages across multiple maps, making the whole thing feel like a mini multiplayer campaign. Breakthrough was spawned out of this mode in Battlefield V, being more simplified with a single stage and just one attempt for the attackers. This is the mode that is carried on to 2042. Unfortunately, Breakthrough got off to a rocky start in 2042, I guess in keeping with the theme of the game's launch in general. Balance was a huge struggle, and being attacker at the outset was nearly impossible. The mode suffered like the rest of the game, with infantry play being secondary and vehicles dominating. Sweeping balance and map adjustment changes happened, including the removal of the 128 player option. And that brings us to where we are today in Breakthrough, where as a player you are offered one of two very different experiences. I had planned a diatribe on how balance was painful in Breakthrough right now, and how it was almost impossible to win a game as defender. I then played some more over the last couple of weeks, and promptly won a bunch of games on defense, so there goes that rant. Regardless, the real concern is that while attacking on Breakthrough is pretty fun, playing as a defender is overwhelmingly an unpleasant experience. It's a real slog. I've seen across Battlefield Twitter numerous complaints about getting stuck on defense 5 or more rounds in a row, as well as people who straight up refuse to play as defenders and who will just keep re-queuing to get a match on attack. I have yet to see a single person prefer defense to attack in this game. This wasn't an issue in previous titles, so what's the problem? Well, for starters, vehicle balance is a major issue. For example, one night I was playing defense during a round on Renewal. At the last sector, our team was squaring off against 2 Condors, 2 AAs, and a continuous spawn of stealth choppers. 2 transports allow constant deployment of infantry directly to a height advantage over the 2 flags, while a number of attack vehicles lay waste to anyone trying to counter, including any time we spawn in a vehicle ourselves. So, while not every map design caters to this vehicle advantage, it is exceedingly unfun to play on defense and just be farmed incessantly by the attacking team's relentless vehicular slaughter. A lot of this advantage could be heavily mitigated by the removal of transport air vehicles' infantry farming weapons. The Hind and Condor did receive a bit of a nerf to the 50 on the last update, but given how tanky these vehicles are, they really need to remove that air-to-ground type of weapon completely, and this includes the 40mm volley. Returning a transport to the role of transport, while still giving it a chance to defend itself from air vehicles, will do 2 things. First, it will allow defenders to focus on infantry spawning off the transports, and second, it'll allow defenders to focus more on the objectives rather than constantly diving for cover to avoid a deathly barrage from the air. This isn't entirely detrimental to the attacking team either, as you will get less people camping in the 50 seat and an extra seat dedicated to people who are using the transport as a spawn point to exit from. Regarding the available attack vehicles, DICE really needs to look at that map by map, as the balance is decent on some maps but terrible on others. Another way to improve things for defenders is to build up defensible positions. Much like lack of cover was a huge issue for attackers at the outset of the game, most maps don't have very logical defense access points. While I know that we're not going to get the build mechanics from BFV, it would be nice to have assets in place that appear to be designed for defending, as opposed to seemingly randomly scattered about. Natural choke points combined with multiple flanking opportunities to have defenders needing to make choices but able to make choices would be a big help. Having these positions be sheltered from vehicles farming infantry is an absolute must. Exposure again stands out above the launch maps in this design, especially with the second and third sectors. Obvious access points to defend, but multiple flanking options exist for attackers who want to send those elite units that way while trying to pummel the front line. In addition to positions, stationary emplacements would be a huge addition to enjoyable gameplay for a defender. Not sure why we're missing stationary weapons in this game, especially with such a massive increased focus on vehicle gameplay. The lack of stationary AAs has greatly contributed to the dominance of air vehicles since launch. Stationary emplacements are a critical tool to help defenders in any attack and defense mode, especially against vehicles. They relieve pressure on defending infantry from vehicle assault, if only by drawing focus from those vehicles. They also become additional strategic map elements for players on both sides to consider, furthering dynamic gameplay. Whatever the reason, not having stationary weapons in 2042 is a drastic oversight, especially when it comes to focused modes like Breakthrough. So it's obvious that addressing vehicle balance and counterbalance will go a long way to improving a defender's gameplay experience in Breakthrough. Unfortunately, it seems every time an attempt is made to improve the player experience, DICE will try everything else before they address vehicle balance. There's no better example of this than when they removed the 128 player option on Breakthrough, citing it being too chaotic. The recent popularity of 128 rush servers in Portal proves that there is a significant portion of the Battlefield fanbase that loves concentrated chaos, and this should have been obvious already given the success of maps like Metro and Locker over the years of the franchise. The issue was never with chaos in 128 Breakthrough. Much like everything else in 2042, the issue was the excessive vehicle focus. Overpowered vehicles like the Hovercraft at launch and the Nightbird and the Bolt dominated 128 Breakthrough servers, and as infantry you couldn't make a move without getting blasted by 30mm cannons or Nightbird rocket spam, and the moment you chose to try and counter vehicles, you were either way off the objectives and not helping your team, or else on the objectives and getting deleted by infantry every time you tried to focus on a vehicle. So rather than addressing balance, 128 Breakthrough was removed, and I know there are plenty of people who miss it. Aside from obvious map flow issues and open spaces, I did prefer a number of the 128 layouts to the 64 player layouts we now have. Having more players also allowed a larger dynamic for playstyles. You could afford to have a handful of snipers sitting in the back without feeling like you didn't have enough players to take or defend an objective. So I for one would love to see a return of 128 Breakthrough, but with less of a vehicle farm, allowing all kinds of play to occur. Finally, and I think I'll cover this topic in more detail in a later video, the issues with matchmaking are extremely apparent in Breakthrough, especially map repetition. The number 2 Breakthrough complaint I see behind always being stuck on defense is playing the same map either several times in a row or every other map. I've seen it suggested that part of this is due to people exiting a game and re-queuing instead of waiting for the end of round timers to run their course naturally, but I recently tested that theory out with failed results. I queued up and played 3 rounds of Breakthrough in a row. After each round was done, I let the game time out and exit to the menu normally, and then waited for the timer to start matchmaking and find me a new server. After the 4th time in a row of putting me in Hourglass, I decided this theory was definitely not working as intended. I do see the benefits of matchmaking, but apart from the aforementioned Metro and Locker, most Battlefield players do not want to play the same map over and over again for their whole gaming session, so this really needs to be addressed. Another issue with matchmaking that I suffer with as a largely off-peak hour gamer, and one that again is particularly problematic with Breakthrough, is the lack of matches I can matchmake to. If I'm gaming through the middle of the night in my region, I will often get a half-empty server at best, and no option to matchmake to regions that may not be as great for me regarding performance, but at least I would get a game. The only option is to hit that matchmaking button and hope for the best. Often I'm in a lobby with fewer than a dozen actual players, while the rest of the server is filled with bots. I have nothing against the use of bots in 2042, but preferably as a temporary backfill measure or playing solo. If I'm playing multiplayer, I'd rather be playing against other people, and the way off-peak matchmaking is working, it really has been a struggle to fill servers. Hopefully, DICE will continue to make improvements and consider some things like trying to get vehicle balancing right and improving matchmaking options for everyone. I'd really love to see this mode return to its former glory. Do you think any of these suggestions have merit? If you do, leave a like, and if you have other ideas for how to improve this game mode, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.